Hare Krishna. Harinamananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Guru, how are you?
Thank you so much for being here. Please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada, all glories to Great Ever, all glories to you.
Oh, glories to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. So, as usual, dear devotees, we thank you all for being here today. His Grace Harinamananda Prabhu is here to speak the Bhagavatam to us today. Prabhuji, we truly thank you for speaking today. We appreciate it. And
thank you for engaging me.
Oh my goodness, we are very much blessed to have your association once again.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Salika Prabhu Hare Krishna, look Hare Krishna. We're going to put the verse on the screen and then you may take over.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 27. Chapters entitled The Lord in the Heart. Okay. Device. Okay. Na yatra soko na jara na mityo narati na chuve garite kusachit naschita toda kripayani dam vidam turanta dukkha prabhavan darshanat. Word for word. Na, never. Yatra, there are. Shokaha, bereavement. Na, nor. Jara, old age. Na, nor. Mityu, death. Na, nor. Ati, pain. Na, nor. Cha, also. Udvega, anxieties. Ite, save and accept. Kustas chit, sometimes. Yet, because of. Chit, consciousness. Tataha, therefore. Ataha, compassion. Kriya, out of heartfelt sympathy. And idam vidam, those who are ignorant of the process of devotional service. Duranta, unsurpassable. Dukkha, misery. Prabhava, repeated birth and death. Anudarshana, by successive experience. Translation and purport by Divine Grace. C.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In that plane of Satyaloka, there is neither bereavement, nor old age, nor death. There is no pain of any kind, and therefore there are no anxieties. Save that sometimes due to consciousness, there is a feeling of compassion for those unaware of the process of devotional service, who are subjected to insurpassable miseries in the material world. Purport. Foolish men of materialistic temperament do not take advantage of successive authorized knowledge. The Vedic knowledge is authorized and is acquired not by experiment, but by authentic statements of the Vedic literatures explained by bona fide authorities. Simply by becoming an academic scholar, one cannot understand the Vedic statements. One has to approach the real authority who has received the Vedic knowledge by disciplic succession, as clearly explained in the Bhagavad Gita 4.2. Lord Krishna affirmed that the system of knowledge, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita, was explained to the Sun God, and the knowledge descended by disciplic succession from the Sun God to his son Manu, and from Manu to King Ikshvaku, the forefather of Lord Ramachandra. And thus the system of knowledge was explained down the line of great sages, one after another. But in due course of time, the authorized succession was broken, and therefore, just to re-establish the true spirit of the knowledge, the Lord again explained the same knowledge to Arjuna, who was a bona fide candidate for understanding due to his being a pure devotee of the Lord. Bhagavad Gita, as it was understood by Arjuna, is also explained in Bhagavad Gita 10.12 and 13. But there are many foolish men who do not follow in the footsteps of Arjuna in understanding the spirit of Bhagavad Gita. They create instead their own interpretations, which are as foolish as they themselves, and they thereby only help to put a stumbling block on the path of real understanding, misdirecting the innocent followers who are less intelligent, or the Sudras. It is said that one should become a Brahmin before one can understand the Vedic statements. And this stricture is as important as the stricture that no one shall become a lawyer who has not qualified himself as a graduate. Such a stricture is not an impediment in the path of progress for anyone and everyone, but it is necessary for an unqualified understanding of a particular science. Vedic knowledge is misinterpreted by those who are not qualified brahmanas. A qualified brahmana is one who has undergone strict training under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. The Vedic wisdom guides us to understand our relation with the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna and to acting accordingly in order to achieve the desired result of returning home back to Godhead. But materialistic men do not understand this. They want to make a plan to become happy in a place where there is no happiness. For false happiness, they try to reach other planets, either by Vedic rituals or by spacecraft. But they should know for certain that any amount of materialistic adjustment for becoming happy in a place which is meant for distress cannot benefit the misguided man, because after all, the whole universe with all its paraphernalia will come to an end after a certain period. Then all plans of materialistic happiness will automatically come to an end. The intelligent person therefore makes a plan to return home back to Godhead. Such an intelligent person surpasses all the pangs of material existence like birth, death, disease, and old age. He is actually happy because he has no anxieties of material existence. But as a compassionate sympathizer, he feels unhappiness for the suffering materialistic man. And thus he occasionally comes before the materialistic men to teach them the necessity of going back to Godhead. All the bona fide acharyas preach this truth of returning home back to Godhead and warn men not to make a false plan for happiness in a place where happiness is only a myth. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Vidamayam Dadati Swabhadam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasi Gaura. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Vanchikapatara Vishya Prasanna Vichaparitam Bhavni Vyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. So success means falling in the disciplic succession. If we approach the Vedas or Bhagavad Gita with a materialistic temperament, you're guaranteed to have a foolish misinterpretation. So many examples of this. There's one person he would preach Bhagavad Gita just to promote his own dental practice, saying that Krishna is like the dentist and Arjuna is the patient. Or someone like Gandhi, he says that the Bhagavad Gita is all about non-violence, which is nonsense, because Krishna is telling Arjuna you have to fight and kill your relatives, your grandfather, and your teacher. And the main nonsense interpretation that comes up a lot is that they say that Kurukshetra is just like a fictional place. Kurukshetra is representing the body, and the Pandavas are not real. They represent the five senses. So the Bhagavad Gita, it's totally, when it's not in specific succession, then you lead to these foolish misinterpretations, which leads to failure. It's all complete nonsense. So Srila Prabhupada says that his purport's actually more important than the verses themselves. They were going on by the translation of Dr. Radha Krishna in his Bhagavad Gita, but that Bhagavad Gita doesn't carry the spirit of Bhagavad Gita. So the purport is showing how to apply such knowledge. So we're not just after Gyan, knowledge, but we're after Vigyan, application or science. Real science means there's a theory, and then one does the experiment. By the observation of such an experiment, there's a result. So many of us, when we trial such experiments presented by the Bhagavad Gita, we can see the results of being free from material desires. So that's what Srila Prabhupada has given us. Otherwise, we're left with either philosophy without religion, which leads to like a dry armchair philosopher, just sitting in his armchair and just thinking about things but not doing anything. Or religion without philosophy, which leads to mundane sentiment or fanaticism. Even we've seen that all around the world. That this how just running on sentiment and leading to fanaticism. A born again Christian stuffing a book distributed in the street and saying that you're going to hell and you don't believe in Jesus. And then we explain philosophically, we follow Jesus Christ. We even dress like Jesus Christ. We are wearing robes and we're not even wearing robes. Are you following Jesus Christ? He says, thou shalt not kill. And they have this foolish misinterpretation saying that it means thou shalt not murder. Do you think Jesus is so stupid that he didn't know the difference between killing and murder? So we can see that real religion is presented in the Bhagavatam. It's kicking out all cheating religion. Ketavada. Real religion means Savai Kumsam Parodamo. Ito Bhakti Yadoksija Haitaki Yapatita Yadapa Supasidati. That supreme dharma for the human being is the transcendent loving service of the transcendent Lord, Adoksija, Krishna. And without any motivation and without any interruption. Yadatma Suprasidati, it completely, supremely satisfies the self, the Atma. So these foolish misinterpreters, we find examples of this, of how either making it dry. Example we find with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Gopinathacharya tells Lord Chaitanya, Shukshataka Kali Kaite Chamage Yara Tante Lina Mito Payo Ikripa Tumana. He explains to Lord Chaitanya, logic is like a dry oil cake from which all the oil has been extracted. The Bhattacharya passed his life in eating such dry cakes, but now you have made him drink the nectar of transcendental pastimes. It is certainly your great mercy upon him. So Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, went to Jagannath Puri, and upon coming into Jagannath Puri, saw Lord Jagannath, and he saw them as Krishna himself. He wanted to embrace the Lord. And then at an exit, he collapsed right in front of the Lord. So many of the guards of the Jagannath temple came to see if this was a troublemaker or not. So they called Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the Mahant of the temple there, and the priest of Maharaj Prataparudra. So upon seeing Lord Chaitanya, this young sannyasi, he put this cotton swab in front of his nose, and you could see he was still alive. And he saw this is actually he's in ecstasy when the Asta Satvika Bhavs is taking place in the body of Lord Chaitanya. So they took him to his place. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was pretty much the most renowned philosopher in India at that time. So the seat of like philosophy and logic was Navadvip at that current moment. But what happened before then was in Ayodhya. They were the great pundits that defeated the Buddhists and kicked them out of India. So all logic, like the highest logic you could learn, was in Ayodhya. But you couldn't take notes if you went to learn there. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he went to, he's such a renowned scholar. He went to Ayodhya, memorized it, and taught it in Navadvip in Bengal. So then Navadvip became the seat of logic and knowledge. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya eventually became elevated to the point of being the priest of Maharashtra Paruda, the king of Orissa. And he was known to teach many sannyasis, even though he was a household. So such a renowned personality. Even philosophers nowadays are referring to his works on logic, which are hard to understand. So he was thinking, let me teach this sannyasi the Vedanta. And Lord Chaitanya, being respectful, listened for 7 days. He didn't say a word. So usually, like, if you're speaking or explaining something to someone, you kind of want to get some reciprocation, like a nod, or like, yes, I understand. I don't understand. You know, you want to know that they're actually listening. So he wanted to check if you actually understand what's going on. What Chaitanya said that, yes, I understand the Vedanta Sutra is very clear, but your interpretations are just like a cloud that's covering it. How could you say such a thing? And then Lord Chaitanya explained the Vedanta with direct sort of translation, literal meaning, instead of a covered speculative meaning. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya found himself defeated to the point that he surrendered unto the Lord and became his devotee. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was this like greatest impersonalist. And then when it came to this famous verse from the 10th canto, the 14th chapter, text 8, Lord Brahma's best Tate Shushmikshmano Buddhina Eva Vapubi Vedanta Namaste Jiveshiyo Mukti that, oh my dear Lord, as your devotee patiently waits for you to bestow his mercy upon him. He's waiting for your mercy. Or at the same time, he tolerates and suffers the reactions of his past misdeeds. Despite just suffering for these reactions, he still worships you with his heart, words, and body. In this way, he becomes eligible for liberation, for your mercy, for spiritual world. So this word mukti pada, mukti is generally known as impersonal liberation. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in front of Lord Chaitanya says, I don't like this mukti pada. So he changed the word to bhakti pada as being the highest goal. And Lord Chaitanya says, no, you shouldn't change that. You shouldn't change it. Mukti pada, real mukti means attaining the lotus feet of this supreme Lord. So don't change it. So you just see, he was just this big impersonalist, addicted to dry logic and philosophy, armchair philosophy. But by tasting just a little bit of that bhakti that Lord Chaitanya gave, he spat on impersonalism, he spat on wanting to merge into Brahman. Those devotees, they see it as good as hell. What's the point if you can't serve the Lord, if you can't give pleasure to the Lord? So it's as good as hell. So you don't want to be dry philosophers. And if you're sentimental or fanatic, then you can make it, people can make bhakti very cheap. There was a good example. Apparently there was a play done in Germany. My spiritual master, he explained this. And there's one lady, and she's like ironing so many clothes, and she got all curl pins, and there's the husband, and he's in like this like singlet, and he's like, you know, he's watching the football. He's like, yeah, kick it, go, kick it like this. And she's like ironing, and she's saying, and I thought he was going to deliver me like this. And then he's watching the football. He's like, shut up, trying to watch the football here like this. I go, oh, can't you do something practical? And he goes, "Where's my coffee?" So she brings him the coffee. And then she goes, "What about your Krishna consciousness?" He goes, "Don't worry, I'm always Krishna conscious. See, the coffee is black, like Sham. And then the milk is white, like Radharani. So then you pour the milk into the coffee, stir it up, you get Gauranga." So when we use sentiment or we have religion without philosophy, then we tend to make things cheap, so we can still fulfill our own sense gratification. This is the nature of such misinterpretations and not following in the civic succession. So one needs to have a bona fide spiritual master in this civic succession to be successful in spiritual life, to show exactly how to apply the Vedas in any situation, because it's about vigyan, it's about realization, how to apply them. So many times I remember at school they're teaching us like this advanced math, this sine wave, cosine waves, all these things. I'm like thinking, when am I ever going to use this? Wasted so much time. Most of the time, you learn what to do on the job, and whatever you learned in school or university doesn't really apply. So, but spiritual life, everything is practical. Whatever's there in the Vedas can be applied, but you need an expert to show you. And that's the bona fide spiritual master. Krishna even advised that Vedic for the Putana for the Putana Sadio, Dikshan Jnana Jnana Sattvadarshi. They just try to approach spiritual master quiet from his submissive. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge on you because they've seen the truth. They've seen Krishna. They've seen you as a spirit soul. And they see how you can give pleasure to Krishna. And the secret of success, talking about success, that secret is the satisfaction of the spiritual master. Yes, yet prasada, Bhagavat prasada, yes, yet prasada, nagati katopi. That without the mercy of the spiritual master, one cannot get the mercy of Krishna. One should make instructions of the spiritual master in one's life himself. So we may know like the general, so-called general instruction, 10 and 16 rounds, following four of the principles. But they're the most important instructions that we have. We think, well, anyone can follow the four of the principles. Really? At all circumstances. The whole material world is, and materialistic leaders making sure everyone gets stuck in these four simple activities. Meat eating is worldwide. It's huge. In Europe, every month, something like 50 billion animals are killed for food. A month, not just like it happened 20 years ago. We hear of genocide, like, oh, how could it happen? Millions of people dying. No, this is like real lives in the animal form being killed per month just in Europe, to speak of other countries. So there has to be some reaction. And that's what keeps you stupid as well. They don't want you to think about spiritual life. And then intoxication. There's all forms of intoxication that come through, and especially smoking. It's purposely introduced to teenagers so they become addicted when they get older. Alcohol doesn't help anyone, but the music industry, the movie industry, saying how cool it is to get intoxicated and what to speak of all these heavy drugs. Illicit sex, the internet is pretty much 99.99% full of mic. Is it clear now?
Yes.
How about now? It's okay now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about
that. Okay.
So illicit sex, the internet is 99.99% pornography. So taking away the strength of many men through such meditation on illicit sexual activity, and And what to speak of, like what type of children are born out of illicit sex? Manasankara. It keeps, again, the population stays ignorant to spiritual life by such activity, and what to speak of gambling. I don't know if you noticed during the pandemic, the sports didn't stop. And you're thinking, how could they make money? All the stadiums were empty. And that's not how they make money. They make money through gambling. Gambling had to keep going, do it online. And many people's families have been broken down just from this addiction of gambling. And thinking that we can achieve more than we're destined. So these things is actually, to avoid such activity, is revolutionary in this world. We're part of the revolution by following these four regular principles. And Prabhupada says this is just human life. This is basic human life. So how do you become transcendental? By chanting the holy name. 16 rounds minimum every day. We are chanting. And by following the instruction, by being connected to a spiritual master, the next verse says, Yajkanta na punamoham evan yasyasi pandava yen bhutani yashesham jakshi yatmini yatomai. Having attained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you'll see that all living beings are but a part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are Maya. This is true knowledge. To be able to not only see yourself, not only to treat yourself exactly as you are as an eternal spirit soul servant of Krishna, but to see all other living entities in the same way. That's the vision of a preacher. That everyone needs to somehow get mercy to connect to Krishna. And in that way, we follow the footsteps of Arjuna, the friend, the pure devotee of Krishna. We follow in his footsteps and understanding who we are, who is Krishna, and our relationship with him. This is the purpose of human life. We can attain Krishna by following the footsteps of Arjuna. Tesham satata yuktanam vachitam pitipurvikam dadami buddhing yogantam yenamamati yantite. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. We're always living a lie, stuck in illusion. But what is that absolute truth that we can hold on to? We're Anandamaya Vyasa, the soul is pleasure seeking. But Krishna is a Akila Rasamritamurti. He is the reservoir of all pleasure. If you were to literally translate Akila Rasamritamurti, Akila means completely. Rasa means that taste or mellow we experience in this with relationships. Amrita, nectar, Murti, form. So Krishna is that complete nectar of rasa, of relationships in that form, Krishna. And we see that not only that the person Bhagavat, the spiritual master, guides us, but the book Bhagavat, the Srimad Bhagavatam, is guiding us through three aspects: Sambandha Gyan, Abhideya, Purojana. Sambandha Gyan is the knowledge of knowing who we are and knowing who Krishna is, and our relationship with Krishna and his energies. Abhideya is the process of realizing that relationship through bhakti, chanting, Shravana, Kirtana, Vishnu Smarana, the processes of devotional service. And then Parojana is the goal, to attain love of Krishna, Krishna prema. This is the goal of the living entity. Nityasira Krishna prema sabhakarana Shravanari Sudhichita Koriyada. That the living entity is originally Krishna prema bhakta. We are originally lovers of Krishna. And it's dormant in the heart. It just needs to be awakened by Shravanadi, starting with hearing. It doesn't come from an outside source. So when the Bhagavat, whether it's the book or the person, those who are materialistic, they refuse to be submissive in hearing. Bhagashwara Prashaktana, Sai Prahita Chetasana, Viyavasyamaka Buddhi, Sabadona Vidite. Those who are too addicted to material opulence or sense gratification, that resolute determination with devotional service does not take place. Not samadhi. That does not take place. They cannot focus on this. It makes no sense to them. Instead, what do? They just try and constantly make adjustments in this material world. Just trying to, like, whether it's cold, okay, let's make it hot. Okay, it's hot, let's make it cold. They're just adjusting, never getting comfortable. And the example that Prabhupada gives is that they try to go to other planets, the heavenly planets, either by ritual or by rockets. Which one you're going to choose? The ritual, so many yagyas, so many austerities for a few lifetimes. And you have to be very strict in it. Karma kanda does not give room for mistakes. How many times have we seen mistakes by the karma kandis? We see in the Krishna book, King Nriga, he was transformed into a lizard. And what was his mistake? He was giving charity like anything. And then so many thousands, tens of thousands of cows he was giving away in charity. But unfortunately, one cow wandered into another Brahmin's herd, and he gave that cow away. And then the Brahmanas were arguing, no, this is my cow. No, I want my cow. This was given to me. And he said, I'll give you both 10,000 cows each for that one cow. And they said, no. And you're wondering why, because they're Brahmanas. Why are they so greedy for one cow? Because the idea was that the Brahmanas, they want to uphold dharma. If a Kshatriya can take back the charity that's given to a Brahmana, that principle must be up. We shouldn't let that happen under any circumstance. Because if this Kshatriya could take this cow back, and then any Kshatriya would transgress dharma from taking back the property of the Brahmana, which has already been given. So then he had to face the reaction. When he died, Yamaraj said, you want to face your simple reactions or your pious actions? And they had to spend many years as a lizard, which were eventually found in the well by Krishna's kids, children, Samba and the other children. And then Krishna touched it with his hand or with his foot, and then he regained his celestial form. But just a small mistake. So you can imagine doing these rituals to attain heaven. It's not so easy. You have to do it perfectly, maybe for a few lifetimes. And then you go there. And because you think like, wow, I live for 10,000 years on the moon planet, it's going to be great and enjoy like anything. It's really bad. Even though there's no old age and there's no death, what actually does happen, you're enjoying with angelic women and drink the samaras. You're in these gardens and everyone worships you sort of a little bit. You're looking beautiful. And you have this garden. So when it's time, when your credit runs out, sometimes you go on holiday, spend so much money. When your money runs out, you have to leave. So when your good karma runs out, your garland starts to fade, and the partner you've been enjoying with sees that you're about to leave and just sort of hooks up with someone else in front of you. And that heartbreak turns into a tear, and then it goes down into the lower planets, into the earthly planet. And that jiva could be eaten by rakshasas on the way. If you're not, then you come down as rain. And then you go into the grain, and then some man eats the grain, and then you can be born again. Hopefully, in the right situation. So they're just going up and down. It's a waste of time. And what to speak of the materialists, throwing their rockets a little bit in the sky. Prabhupada said they didn't land on the moon. All these trillions of dollars, what to bring back? Some dust from some rocks from the moon. Such a waste of money. Such a waste of time and energy. And Krishna himself says, because this place is dukkhalayam asasutam, it's tempering, full of misery. And one may argue, that, the happiness in this world is not that bad. There is some happiness. Really? Is there really happiness in this world? Yeah, we go out, have a drink, meet someone, sex, wealth, prestige. We get it sometimes. A little bit is there. Can we just appreciate the things that we get and be satisfied? It's a compromise because it's a world of duality. Night and day, hot and cold, rich and poor, black and white. Happiness, that has to be the stress. And Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita 5:22. Ye samspasha ja bhoga dukha yoniya evite ariyantavantatam matapuraha. This is the brahmachari verse. I like to call it. Ye samspasha, by contact with the material senses. Dukkha yoniya evite. Dukkha means the stress. Yoni means the source of. Evate, certainly, indeed. 4 times in the one line, Krishna is saying that by contact with the material senses is the sources of misery. Such an advice. But you still may say, but I experience happiness. I see people out there, they're happy. Advertisements say it's all amazing. So how can you tell me that it's all the sources of misery? Because Ari Antavanta Kuntiya. Ari means the beginning. It has a beginning and an end. That's the problem. We're a spirit soul. Najayate mrite vakadachin ajo kadacho ajo nicho sasvatam sam yam purano yahanyate hanumane sarya, that we're eternal, nitya. We don't die. We're unborn, ajo. We need a happiness that has no beginning and no end. That's sanatana. This is what we need. So any happiness that's temporary, it equals misery. That's the worst thing about a rich man. He suffers more when he loses his money than someone who's just been poor the whole time, isn't it? So the intelligent, they don't take part in such activities. So we have to be intelligent. Krishna even goes further. It doesn't matter where you go in the whole material world. Abhavna, Bhuvana Loke, Punavatana Arjuna, Mamupetara Kuntiya, Punajamna Vichite. From the highest plane in the material world down to the lowest, all places of misery, where repeated birth and death take place. For one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. It's just literally happiness in this material world is just a myth. They're lying to you. The illusion has got you trapped. It's like trying to get water in a desert and you're just chasing a mirage. I will be happy in this material world. No, it's like trying to find water in a desert. You need an ocean to quench your thirst, and you're thinking, yes, if I just get there, and you're seeing an animal, a deer, they'll chase a mirage and they'll just die just chasing it. People think they're chasing so many things of this world that will make them happy. But it's just a mental concoction that you're enjoying. The pictures in your mind. Once I get that girl, once I get that guy, once I get that house, once I get that job, once I get that much money, once I become that strong, once I become that smart, once I get that degree, then I'll be happy. And then you start already projecting how you'll be happy. Prabhupada talks about a story. This man who is a pot maker. So he's making pots. He says, yes, I will sell these pots. And then I'll double my business. I'll make many pots. And then I'll have many shops selling these pots. Then I'll have factories selling these pots. And I'll be so rich, And then I'll get a big house and a car, and I'll have a beautiful wife. And then if she doesn't do what I say, then I'll just kick her. So in his mind, he's thinking all this. When he kicked, in real life, he kicked the pot he just made, the person. So this is what mental concoction does. This keeps us in a deeper illusion, thinking that you can be happy in this world. But what is real?
Who are they as well? Oh, if it's Mike Tyson, I'm not doing it. Why is Mike it?
Because there's certain boxes you can have disconnected people from.
Thank you. It's all happening there. I hope I didn't startle too much with my misery of the world. So the gap, the happiness that so-called mental concoction concocts is the gap between two suffering. We just like relief for a brief amount of time, and then we think we equal that. That's the real happiness. No, that's an illusion. So Krishna and the pure devotees are very kind. They can say we're trapped in this situation. Just like the residents of Satyaloka. They don't experience this, but they experience some pain. Para dukkha dukkhi. They feel the pain of others' suffering. This is the pure devotee. We see this with Prahlad Maharaj. He didn't ask for any benediction. He says, my Lord, I'm okay. What about these rascals who cannot think of you? What about them? How are they going to get your mercy? He even mentions about the Lord appearing as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in one of his prayers. So Krishna and the pure devotees, they team up. Brahma, Brahmate, Konya Bhagavanji, Guru Krishna Prasadipai Bhakti Lava at the beach. According to their karma, all living entities wandering throughout the entire universe. We've been in so many bodies in so many situations. Sometimes upper planetary systems, lower planetary systems. And out of millions of wandering living entities, one is fortunate when he gets the opportunity to associate with the body of that spiritual master. For the grace of Krishna, Krishna sends him to you. By the mercy of both Krishna and spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creep of devotion, the bhakti like the beach. And it's our duty to look after it by lots of hearing and chanting. They've given us this mercy of being connected to the Parampara. And you can see how kind Krishna is, how kind the pure devotee is. Srila Prabhupada revealed the story to his disciple Bhavananda. He says, I was in the spiritual world, and Krishna says, I want you to go to the material world and preach. Prabhupada told Krishna, I don't like austerity, I don't want to grow. Krishna said, that's okay, you just write books and I'll do the rest. So we can see the power of these books. Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Prachaya. As a servant of Saraswati Thakur, he's preaching the Vani, the message of Lord Puranga. What is that message? Harinama, 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 Kalona, Steva, Steva, that deliverance in Kali Yuga is by chanting of the holy name. There's no other way. Through Harinam Sankirtan, that's the Yuga Dharma. But we're not convinced of this. So Nivasesha Sunyavari Pasitadeshitaya. That the whole Western world is covered by impersonalism and voidism. And he's delivering us through these books, through the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam, Vyaktakara Bhagavate Karabharava, Kali Yuga Dhamma Nama Sankirtan. That the Bhagavatam is revealing again and again that the essence of Dharma in Kali Yuga is Nam Sankirtan, congregational chanting. We need to become intelligent and engage in the true Krishna Sankirtan, which is an ever-increasing ocean bliss. Anandam Buddhivadana. That's where the soul belongs. This is where our success lies. Otherwise, if we just saw on face value Harinam Sankirtan, we can't appreciate. I remember I saw the Harinam when I was like 10 years old in the city in Australia. And straight away, the first thing I thought was like, these people are useless. They're not helping anyone. They're just some white people trying to be Hindu, and they smoke ganja, and they're just some crazy sex cult. That's what I thought of them. And look what happened. Then 10, 12 years later, I'm doing the exact same thing in a more crazy way. Every day on Harinam, I'm doing the same thing. But I didn't appreciate until I never had faith until I actually read Prabhupada's books and understood the glories of Harinam Sankirtan. That the books are emphasizing this point. Where would we be without Srila Prabhupada? Just think about it yourself. Where would you be? I know where I'd be. I'd probably be dead, commit suicide or something. Life really had me at dire straits. But Srila Prabhupada gave us hope, gave us a whole new life, which was so blissful. And what does he ask for? Just in this lifetime, and minimum 16 rounds daily, and follow the 4 regulations. Because you go back to God, I guarantee it, I guarantee it, I guarantee it. Such a benediction he gave of attaining real success in life. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Is there any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. His Grace HARINAMANANDA Prabhu. It's always so nice hearing you and having your association. The purport you discussed today is very much saturated, and I like the way you took it more of a devotion and staying on course with authority, what Srila Prabhupada has given us. Dear devotees, if anyone has question, comment, realizations, and you want to speak, you may indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak. See, Prabhuji, we know from the scriptures that there is this material world, and then there is the spiritual world. And the basic difference between the material and the spiritual worlds is that this material world is a place of miseries, whereas the spiritual world is a place without miseries. Therefore, it is called Vaikuntha, without miseries. Satyaloka or Brahmaloka is also within this material universe. But here we are reading it that they have no miseries. The only time they have miseries is because they are devotees. They look down, they see how much we're suffering, and sometimes they come here to help assist, preach to us. So because they see that we are suffering, they sometimes come down here to help us. Therefore, I'm wondering, the souls in the spiritual world, where they do not have miseries at all. So if our spiritual masters have gone back to the spiritual world, a place of no miseries, does that mean that they do not look down here to see how much we're suffering and then try to help us? Except those from Tapanoka? That's what I'm wondering, if you may help. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So we can see that I think there's sort of 2 parts to your question. We have a place that says it's Vaikuntha, and then there's anxiety, but it's a spiritual anxiety, obviously. Compassion on the fallen conditioned souls. They share the same mood or desire of the Lord to deliver all the fallen conditioned souls. Because the Lord is a person, and he's known as the father of all living entities. So it's very natural to be concerned about your children if they're gone astray. It's very natural. So then, if some children have gone missing, then if you're dear one is missing them. They're missing their children. We want to bring them back to them. So then the devotees think, okay, let's go down. And we've seen that with the parents. They always usually appear with the Lord. When the Lord appears, then they come. When Bhumi Devi and the earth was overburdened by demoniac forces, military forces, then she appealed to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma with the demigods went to the ocean of milk and they got the message, yes, I will descend and all of you demigods and your wives will come with me and help me in my mission of Vinasyata Dushkutam Dhammasam Pradachara Sadhanam Vinasyata Dushkutam Dhammasam Sthapanataya, that to protect the devotees, to kill the demons and establish Dharma. So that's usually when they come. We see that especially with Lord Chaitanya also, Rupa Goswami and the six Goswamis, all Manjaris that descended, the associates of Lord Chaitanya, or gopis or Manjaris, Keshav Bharati, Sanipani Muni, Ramananda Roy is a combination of Arjuna and Vishaka or Lalita, depends who you hear from. In the Gaura Gunadesh Deepika, it's revealed who they are. But does that mean they're in the material world? No. They're always in the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada, he was asked, you must miss Vrindavan. No, I'm always in Vrindavan. Because the whole point is Krishna is the center. I'm giving pleasure to Krishna wherever I am. There's no thought of being away from Krishna. So, so in that sense, they never leave when they do preach, come down to preach. There's no sense of being out of the spiritual because they engage in devotional service. I mentioned it the last class that devotional service is non-different to the spiritual world because the activities of the spiritual world is giving pleasure to Krishna's senses, whereas in the material world it's sense gratification for one's material body, which as we know is temporary, leads to misery. But when we engage in Krishna consciousness, there's ever increasing happiness. So the pure devotee, whether in Vaikuntha or in the material world, is experiencing ever increasing bliss by their service to the Lord. And at the same time, they feel great suffering because of, if you read a book by Satsarup Maharaj, it's called Vaishnava Compassion. So it has different levels of compassion. So one could have compassion on themselves, one could have compassion for living entities. And at the last chapter, there's compassion for Krishna. And it doesn't say it was the highest, but it's the very most interesting because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Why would we have to have compassion on him? Because he's missing out on that rasa, that relationship from that one living entity that's very unique. And Krishna's worried about that. Like I said, like a father, mother for their children. So we want to relieve Krishna of his distress by bringing back all the conditioned souls. And Lord Chaitanya is engaging us in a big way. Actually, he could do it all himself. He's known as Mali Chaitanya, the gardener Chaitanya. He has all these fruits of love of Godhead. Prabhupada says in the purports, he's distributing them. We distribute these fruits through the via media of the Hare Krishna mantra. He says, I need help to distribute these fruits. So he's empowering and engaging us, fallen Kali Yuga rejects, in the highest thing. And then by engaging Lord Chaitanya's movement, we can attain the highest realm of the spiritual world of Vrindavan. This is the nature of Vrindavan. Krishna wants to, when we say that we want to give Krishna so much enjoyment, so we want to bring so much people into the kirtan. The more people we bring to kirtan, the better it gets. Yeah. So we experienced that in Amsterdam. We had this King's Day Harina. So it was something like 200, 300 devotees. And the ecstasy was when all the public would join in and chant at the top of their lungs. The bliss from that is unmatchable. So that's what the pure devotee experiences when he sees the fallen conditioned soul serving Krishna after so many lifetimes. When they take initiation, that actually gives the spiritual master so much joy. And what debt? We have a big debt to pay. We can't pay it back, but we can try by preaching, by connecting the fallen conditioned souls to Krishna consciousness. I kind of went around about. I don't know if I answered the question.
No. You did. Yeah, thank you. Yes, because those who are real devotees, they are those who feel the pains of others, even though they themselves may not have the pain. So they do come down here. Now, the last sentence of Srila Prabhupada's purport, I find it very interesting and quite intriguing at the same time. Let me see if I can put it up here. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada is saying that all bona fide acharyas preach this truth of returning home, back to Godhead, and warn men not to make a false plan for happiness in a place where happiness is only a myth. Now, if we take this, I think this is like a barometer to test which religion or which acharya is bona fide, is that they tell us this is not our home. We are strangers here, we are visitors, we have to go back to our original home, which is the abode of God. Some may say heaven or wherever. But this seemed to me that Krishna consciousness, even though it's one, because everybody is talking about God consciousness, but when it comes to institution, there are many institutions that are bona fide, other than institution like Hare Krishna movement, based on this statement that Srila Prabhupada has made here. So if you accept that this is the case, then wouldn't that mean that all other religions that preach this same truth, that this is not a happy place because this is not our original home, are bona fide acharyas, are bona fide religions, that when people listen and follow these acharyas and institutions, they also have a better and brighter future.
Yeah, that's the power of the parampara. It's a very scientific system that we get it as it is from Krishna without any addition or subtraction. So that potency is there, and that's why Prabhupada's Gita has made so many devotees, or even revolutionized the world and given a kind of a redirected focus onto the goal of any religion, because we're not after trying to convert Christians to Hindus, Muslims to Hindus, whatever. We want Christians to be pure Christian, we want Muslims to be pure Muslims. So the point of life is to understand who we are, who's God, and our relationship with Him. So the purport is mainly emphasizing the disciplic succession. So a bona fide acharya needs to be in a bona fide sampradaya. We have 4 that are stemming from Krishna, the one from Lakshmi, the 4 Kumaras, so Shiva and Brahma. Maybe there are some pradayas in other faiths I don't know about, but it would be appreciated if there was like a disciplic succession to Lord Jesus Christ, or to Muhammad, or to Moses, or to Abraham. But from interacting with such different followers of different religions, we kind of seen that there is no succession like that. I think that's the biggest strength of our movement. And I'll just end with what Prabhupada says. It's like every religion will talk about loving God, but they don't show you how to love God. So Krishna consciousness can show you how to love God. So you may have your scripture and your acharya, but the practice of actually experiencing God and developing relationship, one can apply the techniques of Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness within their religion. They don't have to change their dress or anything like that. And I explained the last class, like Jade Waitamaraj, who's watching one Christian preacher, and he's preaching, we must do pure devotional service. He's preaching on the stage, hundreds of people. We must do pure devotional service. And in his hand, he's holding Bhagavatam, Canto 1. So if they're intelligent and sincere and they're from another religion, when they take the knowledge from Prabhupada's books, they can see, yes, this is knowledge about God and how to love Him. And I found that a lot in Kenya, actually. We went to Kenya, and many people take books and they've read the books, and they're from Christian and Muslim background, but they understand that these books will give me knowledge of God and how to love Him. That's how you become a true follower of whatever religion.
Yeah, I think that is one big advantage we have, the disciplic succession. But I'm also wondering, because in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila chapter 9, which describes the divine tree of devotional service, where it talks about Lord Chaitanya being the tree, being the gardener himself. And then the tree has lots of branches. And some of the branches are known, some are not known. But even those that are not known, nevertheless, are still connected to that tree. So I understand from the scriptures when Krishna told Arjuna that he imparted this knowledge to the sun god, and then at some point it appeared like it had lost. But it is said that it's always there, except that it's not like in the main stream. So I'm wondering, if Lord Chaitanya's tree has so many branches, wouldn't it be, couldn't it be that there may be some other branches of the Chaitanya tree that may not be known to us, but nevertheless, they are connected to Lord Chaitanya, and therefore they may also be able to go back home, back to Godhead. Even though they are part of their, for example, there are lots of great devotees in Lord Chaitanya's time who also had followers that are no more traced in this age. But it could be that they are still in existence. And if they are still in existence and they are not very popular, but they're still doing whatever was done in Lord Chaitanya's time, wouldn't they go back home, back to Godhead if they stay true to what they were taught?
Yeah, obviously being known as connected to Lord Chaitanya is not a requirement for attaining love of God. Prabhupada said, we know that your relational process is bona fide by how much love of God you're developing. Are you giving up material desires? These aspects. So the Bhagavatam is directly addressing these things, kicking out Kagtava Dharma. And if someone is just like in Surat, in Gujarat, there's many worshippers of Krishna, especially Bal Gopal. So when the devotees went with Prabhupada through Surat doing Harinam, they haven't heard of Lord Chaitanya, but they were very attracted to the Harinam Sankirtan and appreciated what the devotees were doing. So by the sincerity of their worship through their tradition in Gujarat, when Lord Chaitanya's movement was presented to them, it was very easy to accept. So there may be many who don't know Lord Chaitanya, but when they're presented with something they're looking for in terms of developing a relationship with God, spiritual life, by the sincerity, it's very easy to accept. So the way we judge whether someone's process is bona fide is if they're developing love of God and giving up material desires. That's the easiest way.
Well,
thank you so much, Prabhu. I have to go on Harinam now.
Okay. So, dear devotees, Harinamananda Prabhu, we thank you so much. We can't thank you enough, as always. And especially in today's class, because it was more or less a volunteer thing you did today. So I'm very much impressed, particularly the way you took on the text and dealt with it so beautifully. So at this point, devotees, we're going to humbly request you all to unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express appreciation for Prabhu's time, love, and wisdom shared with us today. Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Panchakapatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanabhyo vaishnavyo namo namo.
Jai, all glories to His great Harinamanda Prabhu ki jai. He is on his way out to leave his name to go on Harinam.